last time on Chronicles of a Dreamer, it was important to me at this point to begin the story in a slightly different place than the other two parts. I just wanted something else. After a time, I decided to return to the elements that made Pilgrim's Progress great in the first place. As I was writing, I began to implement an idea which had been with me for some time, but which I had dismissed as impossible. Setting Mariana in the 21st century. Of course, I would not have her drive a car, okay? That would just be wrong. But I could have her use some means of wireless communication or a phone system or something like that without explaining too much, of course, because I would not want to take away from the spiritual nature of this incredible story. After some experimentation, I finally settled on mixing past, present, and future into one seamless or very nearly seamless period. At least it was seamless in my mind. That way the story can be nostalgic, fantastical, and mundane all at once. So I'm going to go ahead and describe some of the things I added, and in these descriptions I will mention some of my characters from the story which I know is unfamiliar to you, so bear with me. First up, I had transports. I'm using in a very limited way something I call transports. Transports are based on a common sci-fi vehicle referred to as the Speeder. They first show up in Chapter 2 when Mariana wants to reach the City of Darkness ahead of the Queen. You never actually hear or see it at that point. It comes up again in Chapter 3 when she and her children flee their castle to get away from Elihu and Shishak. Even then, you only hear the power on, the takeoff, and a couple seconds, give or take, of flight. Transports appear briefly during some other events in Stupidity, but don't appear again in the story. Only a few mentions are made. Next up, I had phones. And while I don't explain what they are or how they work, it's the pretty basic cell phone concept. They have no landlines, so these cell phone-like phones operate as their main phone system. They're also better and have a more reliable range than today's. But as with the transports, I don't make a big deal about them. I just put them in there. Next, I have communicators. Communicators are worn on the arm, like a watch, or as a gauntlet attachment, and they function much like two-way radios, but with greater range and clarity. Swords. Not much new with these, besides the fact that Mr. Greatheart has switched to Jerusalem steel as his primary sword. And beyond that, there are new sword styles. Most of the warriors use one sword and one shield, but some, like Paul and Faith, use two swords, usually one at a time. And though sometimes they use both of them. The other difference is how they carry them. Mr. Greatheart carries his at his side, as one would expect. Paul, on the other hand, carries his swords on his back, both on the same side, whereas Faith, who also carries hers on her back, has one on either side, like either shoulder. Or, if I can make it so you can visualize it, there's a handle sticking out above each shoulder for Faith, and for Paul, both handles are sticking out over his right shoulder. And the difference between their styles is mostly because she uses two swords more often than Paul does in actual combat. Armor. Not much different here either. I do make their armor out of Jerusalem steel. Being the strongest, I thought it would be a good idea. Let's see, what next? I have computers. Not much on these, although Paul does have a computer named Simon who runs the house when he's not there and performs various tasks as needed. Mention of Simon is limited. He appears more frequently, however, in Pilgrim's Progress 4 Raconto, which was a script that I wrote for practice between myself and my friends. During my work on Pilgrim's Progress 3, I've tried to work on other projects to keep my mind from getting tired, and also because I was searching. See, at this point, I didn't know that Pilgrim's Progress was to be my life's work, or any large part of it in any case. I thought it would be a relatively easy project that would be over soon. Then I wanted to move on to something else. I have now come to realize it will take much longer than any project I have ever undertaken. But it may be the biggest project I will ever do, for all I know. What can I say? I lack God's imagination. None of my other projects have been finished yet, but there is one that has come considerably further. It started almost as a hobby, and was my effort to learn how to write a screenplay. I've hardly deviated from my motivations for creating Pilgrim's Progress Part 3 or 4. I always write for more or less the same purpose. Entertainment is always secondary. The new story is a ninja flick with some secret agent action. As you can probably tell, I'm a person that likes to mix genres. I feel that most genres by themselves are common enough, so I want to make something different. I don't want to say too much about it at this point except to say that the ninjas are, for the most part, the antagonists. This project has helped me a good deal in my story construction and thus made my work on Pilgrim's Progress 3 Mariana much better. I look forward to seeing what the end will be, as I have no idea what's in store. Sure, I have an outline, but there's only so much an outline can tell you. Next time on Chronicles of a Dreamer. Out of all the things I've had happen to me, the hardest is when people close to me don't take me seriously. I've let it get me down sometimes. Get fooled into thinking that the way things are right now is the way that they're always going to be, but that is not the case.